The 41st lesson. The carrot runs away to Africa. Mr. Dale had been out of work for about 6 months, and the family was in despair. Sam Christine left his studies too, and went to work as a clerk in one of Mr. Trant's offices, as Mr. Christine could not keep his 2 children on his scanty salary. You have probably read in some books or other that in England, as well as in many other capitalist countries, there are periods of unemployment when thousands of people go hungry, looking for work and finding none. At such hard times, Dr. Christine also found himself in a bad plight, as his practice was chiefly among the working people. The latter being out of work, he earned next to nothing. At last Mr. Dale gave up all hope of finding work in his own country and decided to look for work in America. Jimmy was to go with him. When Lily learned about this decision, she was terribly upset. "Father," she said one evening to Mr. Christine, "Father, why don't you go to Mr. Trant and ask him to give Jimmy's father some kind of work? Mr. Trant will do it for you. Really, Father, you must go to him." "Well, child, you know Mr. Trant is away, and nobody knows when he will be back. Besides, I can't go there. I have asked Mr. Trant for one favour already. He was good enough to take our Sam." "Maybe he'll take Mr. Dale as well. Jimmy's father is the best mechanic in the neighbourhood," Lily said. "Maybe, but you see, it's not nice to bother the man a second time. I was there once, and I think—" "All right, Father, I see what you mean. Don't go there if you don't like to," the girl answered, and picking up her book, pretended to read. 3 days passed. One evening, when Mrs. Dale was packing Mr. Dale's things, the door opened, and Lily rushed in. "What's up, child?" Mrs. Dale cried, startled by the noise. "You frightened me, dear." "Where is Mr. Dale? Where is Mr. Dale?" the girl shouted, waving her hands frantically. "Where is he? Here's a note for him from Mr. Trant. He says he's got a job for him if Mr. Dale is willing to go to Africa." "What has Mr. Dale to do with Africa? When did you see Mr. Trant? How does it happen that he knows my husband?" Mrs. Dale asked in surprise. "Never mind how," Lily cried excitedly. "Here's a letter for him, and Mr. Trant is waiting for him at his office. He's come here quite unexpectedly, and he is waiting for Mr. Dale." "Oh my," Mrs. Dale sighed. "Tom is out. Why must he go to Africa? And Mr. Trant is waiting for Tom, is he?" Yes, he is. He told me himself. As soon as he comes, tell him to run to Mr. Trant's office as quickly as possible. I'm so glad Mr. Dale will have work now," Lily chattered excitedly. Before a week had passed, the whole neighbourhood knew that Mr. Dale was going to Africa as a mechanic with a big scientific expedition. The expedition would have to cross to America with all its machines on board a big liner, and from there start for Africa. The expedition would sail to Algeria, and from there it would cross the African continent to Madagascar. To be continued.